I have a PhD in being background noise at family events. I like my life. Decent apartment, a job that pays the bills, friends who actually read my texts. But I have never, ever been the person anyone in my family treats like an equal. I'm the last one at the table, the one who still needs time to find herself, the one who gets the leftover stories and the childhood nickname that only comes out in front of company. So when Bailey, the middle sister who married well, smiles like a curated Instagram filter, and somehow ages backward every decade, announced her engagement, my first thought was, good for her. My second thought was, please don't let them make a thing of it. I've been legitimately proud of Bailey at times. I've also watched our parents swoon over her since she got her first apartment with hardwood floors. Meanwhile, when I got engaged and later married 2 years ago, my parents didn't chip in a single dime for either the engagement party I scraped together or the wedding I paid for myself. Not one card. Not a supportive, we'll help with nothing. I paid for every napkin, every awkward aunt, every photographer who made me cry in the hotel bathroom because she kept asking if I'd checked my makeup. So on the day of Bailey's engagement party, I didn't expect much. I expected lukewarm hors d'oeuvres, maybe a dutiful toast from Dad, the usual polite smiles. What I did not expect was the mansion. I mean mansion. Marble foyer that swallowed my sneakers, a chandelier you could land a small helicopter on, an outdoor fountain that sounded like money being laundered in a very tasteful way. My parents, who told me we'll help when we can during my wedding planning and then didn't, were hosting and apparently covering everything. The caterer, the live string quartet, a dessert table that would have fed a small country. Bailey's fiancé, Mike, looked like he stepped out of a catalog, and Bailey looked like someone who had memorized the expression, "I'm so honored," and practiced it in the mirror. I picked my way through the crowd of perfectly coiffed cousins and colleagues, nodding my hellos, trying not to notice the way my mother fluttered across the lawn like a queen who'd rediscovered an heir. My father clapped his hands while giving a speech where he called Bailey a shining example and used phrases like family legacy and we're so proud. I was proud too, proud of the fact that the family narrative had a new centerpiece and that apparently all the favors, the pride, and the checkbook came with that centerpiece. Then came the moment that folded up whatever little dignity I'd brought with me and tucked it into a napkin. My mother, quietly, as if she were reminding me to feed the goldfish, told me to sit at the kids' table. No fanfare. No, would you mind? Just, you can go sit with them, sweetie. The kids' table, as in the plastic-clothed folding table in the back corner, the one with the paper plates and juice boxes, the one that had been my place for every awkward holiday since I was 9. I was 28. I had a mortgage, figurative, monthly responsibilities, and, in one of my more adult moves, a credit card that I paid on time. I have never once been asked to move because you're adulting now. Except, apparently, now I'm reduced to a napkin seat because that's convenient when it comes to optics. Everyone else, my siblings, their partners, cousins twice removed, were at the long table under the pergola, clinking glasses, agreeing that Bailey had always known what she wanted. The adults laughed at the jokes about mutual friends and business deals. The kids' table had balloons that said congrats, and a plastic centerpiece shaped like a cartoon cake. I don't think my mother noticed how my smile stopped being a smile. She was busy helping herself to shrimp and telling the neighbor about Bailey's future plans. My father gave me a sympathetic look that read, "You'll understand someday." Bailey waved from the head table like she'd just scored a winning shot and didn't see the smaller things she'd inherited along with the fiancé, the way parental favor seems to run like a current you can't swim against. At stake, and this is what made my hands go cold, was the story that gets told at every family event. Who gets the spotlight and who carries the cups? It's not just about money or party favors. It's about how our parents choose to signal who matters. It's about all the times I swallowed my complaints and played the untroubled youngest because it was easier than arguing. It's about whether they remember that I paid for my own wedding and that I've been paying mortgage installments and childcare bills for other people's children like some permanent support line. It's about whether, after a lifetime of subtext, there would finally be a line where I said, No, actually, I am not the kid anymore. I grabbed my drink, told myself I'd be gracious, and walked toward the kids' table while everyone else raised their glasses in a slow, well-rehearsed chorus of congratulations. The kids at the table were, mercifully, the only people in the yard who didn't seem to be auditioning for a lifestyle brand. They had frosting on their cheeks, mismatched socks, and an economy of attention that didn't require polishing. One little cousin, maybe 8, with a bowl cut and a grin, immediately handed me a juice box like I'd been promoted to honorary sibling. Another kid tried to trade me 3 paper napkins for a plastic tiara. No one shoved their opinions about mortgages in my face. They just wanted to compare the structural merits of balloon animals. I sat down, told myself to stay zen, and let the noise of the party recede into the background. The kids were a delightful, caffeinated island of honesty. They asked blunt questions. Why's Bailey got a diamond that big? And ran around with a freedom I remembered having once, before decorum and polite erasures got installed in my brain like annoying software updates. I didn't want to stay at the kids' table. I never wanted to be there. But I also wasn't going to make a scene in front of the neighbor and their unexpectedly critical gaze. So I did what felt strangely inevitable. I weaponized boredom. First, we built a paper plate crown for me, because of course we did. Then I told them a story about when I was their age, and my big sister convinced me that the cake was haunted. They loved it. Then, in a move that was petty and perfect, I taught them the terrible words adults pretend are nuclear codes. I didn't say the words out loud, not because I'm prudish, but because the idea was funnier when it was half a secret. I described them. The ones everyone pretends are just sounds. The big, juicy 4-letter ones that make lips look surprised. The kind grown-ups whisper like they're describing traffic. Their eyes went wide. They wanted examples, which was when I smiled and played the part of the wicked aunt who knows too much. "Promise me you'll wait," I said. "You have to wait until everyone gets quiet. You'll hear it. Platters will stop clinking. Someone will clear their throat like they're in a movie. That's your moment. When that happens, say them in your loudest, proudest voice. The adults will love it." They giggled the conspiratorial giggle that only children and those who remember being children can pull off. They made pinky promises over juice boxes and chipped crayons, that they would be patient, that they would wait for the exact right second. I taught them how to keep their faces solemn as if performing something reverent. The contrast would be the whole point. I left before they could test the plan. There are people who think revenge needs to be elaborate. Sometimes it's just a nudge, a timed thing, a small, perfectly placed catalyst. I slipped away through the hydrangea bushes, crossed the driveway, and slid into my car while the string quartet was still doing that song people only play at important life milestones. I drove off with my coat collar up like I was on a spy mission, but mostly because I couldn't stand the idea of being watched while I smirked. Walking out felt like reclaiming a little piece of myself. I wasn't ready to have an argument, too messy, too public, but I could set a trap that didn't need me to stand in the spotlight. If the adults were going to assign roles, I was going to write a footnote in the margins that would make them squirm. And then I drove home while the evening glittered behind me. My hands were still warm from the steering wheel when my phone buzzed. Mom's number, the one that always appears on my screen like a flashing neon report for duty. I almost ignored it, then thought better. There's a sweetness to letting the guilty party narrate their own panic. I hit speaker, kept my foot on the brake, and listened to the hum of the streetlight as if it were an extra audience member. "She's mortified," Mom said before the hello. Her voice had that particular blend of indignation and gossip that only mothers deploy when the family's image is at stake. Bailey is absolutely mortified. She's upstairs with her dress on, and she made a noise that I'd learned over the years meant I am not okay with loud language being used in my company. And Mike keeps laughing. Can you believe it? He thinks it's hilarious. He's laughing. Middle of the lawn, like it's a sketch. I pictured Bailey, The floral dress suddenly a manifesto against profanity, and Mike, the catalog fiancé, doubled over with the sort of belly laugh that would be used in advertising for a brand of men's cologne. My chest did a small traitorous thing that could only be described as elation. Not guilt, elation. What happened? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Neutral is a shelter in family storms. Mom launched into a blow-by-blow. Apparently, the adults had finally quieted down for the speeches. The string quartet went soft. Someone made that movie-clearing-the-room cough. That was the moment, according to Mom, when the children, bless them, said things. She danced around the words like someone tiptoeing past a sleeping Great Dane. Bailey thinks it came from one of the cousins, but no one knows which one. She says the children were so brazen. Mike thinks it's the funniest thing he's heard in years. He's not upset at all. He thinks, get this, she's being too sensitive. My knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, not from anger, but from the ridiculous pleasure of hearing their dismay narrated without the creator being named. Mom kept talking, voice picking up the cadence of someone airing a bruise into the neighborhood record. How mortifying it is for Bailey, how unbecoming it is of a party, how some of the older relatives were tutting, and how she was embarrassed for everyone. And everyone's trying to figure out which of the children said it, she added. I mean, who teaches children that? Who thinks that's appropriate? If it was one of the older kids, fine, but the little ones. She paused, filling the silence with a disapproving exhale. I felt something like an apologetic itch and an unrepentant grin collide. A decent person might have confessed at that moment. A decent person might have swallowed her amusement and offered to help clean up the diplomatic disaster. I did not reach that version of myself. Instead, I said softly, "Oh, that sounds," and let the sentence hang like a poised curtain. "You're quiet," Mom said. She sounded hopeful, as if I might supply names like party favors. "Do you know anything? Were you by the kids' table?" I could have denied, deflected, or played the wounded youngest who was once again the overlooked martyr. Instead, I chose the simplest truth I could tell without incriminating myself. I sat with them for a little while, I admitted, but I left early. Mom exhaled the air of a detective who has been handed a suspect but lacks the smoking gun. She said. "Well, whoever it was, they caused quite a scene. Bailey's furious at Mike because he laughed. You should see them." Her voice softened for a second into real concern, the kind parents have when they imagine their children's reputations fraying. "I don't know how this is going to look at work tomorrow." Her last sentence had the exact kind of social anxiety that makes families make dramatic decisions, which, ironically, is why I'd nudged the domino. The thought of Bailey, rigid with propriety, being publicly rattled by something so base felt, to my surprise, like corrective justice. It wasn't about the swear words themselves. It was the principle of being treated like someone who could be overlooked, indefinitely. "Does Bailey think one of the cousins did it?" I asked, feigning maximum helpfulness. "She thinks one of the younger ones," Mom said, "but none of us can tell which. They all look like angels and then..." Another tut. "And then they say things no one taught them." I pictured the kids, solemn and proud, delivering forbidden syllables with faces as resolved as altar boys. The image was absurd and exquisite. "She'll calm down," Mom continued, settling into the parental belief that time and gentility always patch fabric. "Mike just doesn't see the problem. It's like they're on different pages. I told him people will talk." Mom's last line was small and practical. It had the whiff of someone trying to stitch a minor scandal back into something comfortable. I told her, with as much sympathy as I could patent without sounding like I was snickering into my sleeve, "Okay, call me if you want me to swing by." It was a lie. I drove the last 3 blocks home with my heart thrumming a little faster, not from guilt, but from the knowledge that I'd set an honest-to-God ripple into their carefully curated pond. No one had traced the episode back to me. Not yet. There was a private, almost childish satisfaction in that fact. My revenge had been small, surgical, and delivered when I wasn't watching, which is, if anything, the most humiliating thing for people who like to control narratives. As I killed the engine, the house lights went on across the street, and the world settled into its late evening hush. I thought of Bailey pacing in her dress, of Mike still chuckling, of my parents rearranging their pride like silverware to make a bad thing look like a benign one. It wasn't earth-shattering justice. It was a sentence carved into the margins. Pay attention, or the people you dismiss will write footnotes that sting. I locked the car and felt, for the first time all night, like I had a line in the story that belonged to me.